And we're live. Let me open YouTube.
We are live. Yes, open YouTube. How does everybody else get to the video to the chat? Because I end up just going like searching for it.
What do you mean?
That's the only way. Because you can't like open the pop-out chat without going to the video first, which is
exactly.
Well, yeah, you have to do that, but I always wait until I get a notification from Chrome. I'm just subscribed to our own channel, and I've got notifications turned on. That pops up in the upper corner of my screen. I click on that, and
that's a good tip.
That's a great tip if you want your browser to notify you of YouTube things, which I do not. That seems
so we're supposed to have chat open then?
Well, turn off notifications for everything else. Or actually never turn them on. They're off by default, I think.
Ryan, you don't have to. Just some of us engage with the chat sometimes.
Yes, we are podcasting early today because, well, it's, holiday week, and this worked for most of us, except for Cody, who apparently hasn't slept. So it's okay.
Good job, Cody. Good job.
I forget what time I woke up yesterday, but that's not a joke. I don't remember what time I woke up yesterday.
I was up at 4:30 a.m. yesterday and this morning.
Yeah, I was up all night with other work.
All right, I think I have the chat open.
Okay.
So are there any things
I'll
on
go
the,
second to last this time.
Are there any things on the list that we want to take off that we don't want to address at all?
If somebody wants to look at things, I mean, I put 10 of them on there, so I think we could get through all 10, and some of them might not be very long stories, but we could get rid of some if we don't like them.
Yeah, and then for order, I'll go first of the three newbies.
I'll go second.
Oh yeah, so and then Ryan will go last. So we introduce everybody. Last. Yeah.
Since he's never listened to the podcast.
And
I've never listened to our podcast.
That's fine. I wouldn't listen to it either.
I used to be an avid listener before I started working here, so it was fun to be a part of the podcast.
Okay, so there are 7 of us. Or no, 6. I can't count.
Party time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's see. This Peel one I could probably get rid of. That seems boring. It pissed a bunch of people off at the time, but yeah.
Shows how important it was.
Google App Alpha. I don't know if we want to talk about.
That's a teardown Cody did oddly well.
Oddly?
It did 230,000 page views. So yeah, it did oddly well.
That's weird.
Oh, so that was when they added light mode. Okay, yeah, I guess that's. I'd click on that.
I'd click.
I even know why this would click well.
The podcast.
Well, that title, man, that thing's.
That is a beefy title. That is an Artem approved title.
This happened back in February before we were really determined to shorten titles.
Yeah.
Wow, that's one. That's a solid 5-line title, I think, on most screens.
Yeah, it's a beefy one.
No one can ever say we do clickbait.
It's a 7-line title on mine.
We're the opposite of clickbait. We put all the details in the title.
Yeah, the sad part is I know exactly why this one did well. Part of it was the light. Part of it was because that warning just down the beginning of the page that says "Be careful installing this one." Yeah, because a whole bunch of people installed it from APK Mirror and it broke stuff.
Oh.
So yeah, they subsequently then came and read the article that said, "Oh yeah, you probably shouldn't have done that."
Good job.
Okay, so I cut out a couple of them in here, and I'm going to probably get rid of maybe this one too. That doesn't make any sense. Okay, so that brings us down to 7. And then we can just kind of do like a general kind of like, if you have something else you want to discuss that happened this year that was interesting, sure, you can talk about that too.
Damn it, I just opened up all the links. I'm not sure which ones got taken out.
Oh, sorry.
I hate to say it, but actually that Google app one, I don't think there's really enough to talk about there. Like,
okay.
If I was going to pick a teardown, there are probably a dozen others that deserve it way more than that.
Then we could kind of think about that a little bit. In the meantime, so I think we have enough to go with at this point. Then I'm going to start recording, and if I could get quiet for a sec. Man, the Google Hangouts on-air noise cancellation thing, I swear it gets better continuously. I have like
one could hope.
Yeah, I have like no background noise whatsoever. Okay, let me turn this up a bit. Okay. Welcome to the Android Police Podcast. I'm your host, David Ruddick.
I'm Ryan Whitwam.
I'm Cody Toombs.
I'm Jordan Palmer.
I'm Corbin Davenport.
And I'm Ryan Hager.
And this is Ryan's first appearance on the show.
It's true.
He bought a microphone and everything. We just kind of forgot to ever invite him.
You're on the team, Ryan. You're on the team.
I know.
Yeah. So this week, as you know, we're nearing the end of the year. It'll probably be basically the end of the year by the time I get around to editing and posting this. And so we want to talk about some of the stories that, were the most popular on androidpolice.com. You may read this website this year. You may not read this website. We talked about this before, but anyway, so I picked out 10 stories, and then I just cut it down to like 6 because 4 of them just weren't that exciting to actually talk about. You never know what's going to get a lot of page views. I mean, sometimes you do know, but sometimes it's weird. So I guess we'll start in the most obvious place. And if you were to probably guess what the most popular post on Android Police was this year, you would probably be right. That was back in July when we posted the first render of the Pixel 2 XL, which actually we got a couple things wrong on, but we'll talk about that. So this was the first kind of finished image that we're aware of out there of the larger Pixel or any of the either second generation Pixel devices. And this was something we published like 3 months before Google announced the phone.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was pretty accurate.
Yeah, I think we got the
recognizable.
We got the camera wrong.
The camera, it's weird because it's flipped between the XL and the regular Pixel. So the way we have it in the render, it's the Pixel 2 5-inch layout with the camera lens closer to the middle. But it's the other way around on the XL in real life.
Yeah, I also think that the color we went with, which honestly I had to kind of make an executive decision on there, is more akin to the color of last year's Pixels. The color this year is obviously significantly darker.
Yeah, it's sort of like a carbon black.
Yeah, this year is definitely a actual black as opposed to last year's really black, which apparently was not actually black.
Isn't the screen on the final version? I mean, aren't the bezels smaller on the final version as well?
I don't think so. I think that's just the way the picture looks. The thing that we did get wrong, though, is that there is a bottom firing speaker, too, which makes the bezel appear slimmer. So that was probably what you're seeing there. Otherwise, I think
we also didn't get the blue tint on the screen.
Oh, oh boy.
We forgot to put in the little return box in the picture.
Yeah.
Ooh, yes.
Oh man. So yeah,
this was an exciting post when you pushed this one out. Got all of us excited in chat.
It took quite a while to get this together, so I was pretty excited to get it done. This was, by a significant margin, the most popular post on the website this year, and definitely one of our most popular ever. As far as a news item goes,
it's a lot. Do we want to say how many hits it got? Or
we can say, I guess it doesn't matter. This one did like 700,000 page views, which, all things considered, is pretty damn good.
That's like the Pokemon Go APK from last year.
Oh no, that did way more. We don't talk about that though.
Even my girlfriend was on the site for that.
Yeah, exactly. That was nuts. That broke Android Police. So I think, based on what we presented people and what we ended up getting, that was pretty much what you saw there is what you got. The hardware design language. I will say, after actually getting the phone in person, the 2XL looks a lot nicer than any picture of it would suggest.
Yeah,
It
it's
looks
a
a lot
very
higher
handsome
quality.
phone.
Yeah, especially outside of a case. I just took mine out of its case for the first time in like weeks, and it's pretty good. Definitely a striking phone design.
I still think the Panda's prettier.
I don't know. I really like the black this year.
You know, I've held like one of the white phones, and I don't like
The texture's not as
texture.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's weird because they went to the trouble of putting that like coating on the metal for the black one. I don't know why they couldn't make the texture similar between the two phones.
Yeah,
I'm not a big fan of the coating on the white one, or either of them, really. The durability test showed that it was just a thin layer.
I mean,
yeah.
I guess I don't take a lot of knives to my phones, and I like the way the black ones feel. They have sort of like, you know, it's sort of a grippy kind of texture.
You heard it here first. Ryan does not take knives to his phones.
Yeah.
You're not
applaud
living,
you for that, Ryan.
You're not living.
Yeah, I mean, but you know, like even I'm looking at my 2016 XL next to it, and to me it's pretty amazing how much more refined the hardware language, design language, and just general quality seems.
Well, didn't your like all the coating on your last year's XL start coming off?
Yeah, like it comes off on the edges, especially if you don't use a case on the back. The color starts to fade a little bit. I'm guessing you would probably experience some kind of similar problem with the 2XL, but I've kept mine in the fabric case since getting it, so
Yeah.
it's not had any wear.
Mine has been a case pretty much since I got it. It's all pretty.
Yeah, I love the fabric
This
case.
is a 5-inch though.
Yeah, I do need to wash it, but it's
Yeah,
Yeah. I had to wash mine 2 or 3 times already.
I didn't like the fabric case when we first saw pictures of it, but in real life they look very nice.
Yeah, definitely. It's a case, you know, I've had at least a couple people ask me like, hey, what kind of case is that you're using on your phone? Because it is like, it doesn't look like anything else.
Yeah, although mine started like it started like some of the fibers like came loose and kind of balled up at the top of my case after I got it, which is a weird thing to have happen to a phone case.
Yeah, it definitely wears like a piece of clothing, so I'm kind of loath to wash it too much because I think it will wear out pretty fast, especially considering they're $40 a pop. You know, Google is making a killing on these cases. The profit margin must be insane.
The live case more. I think they're $50 now for like the dual layer ones.
Oh yeah, for the dual layer live case, which still seems like the outer layer is made of the same crappy plastic. It's going to crack anyway.
Yeah.
The live cases look stunning, but yeah, the quality is just not there.
Yeah, I love the one that I have for the original Pixel XL, but I've got cracks on like 3 of the 4 corners. I've got a thin piece where the volume rocker is, a thin piece like half of or one side of that's cracked and ready to come off. Like this thing is going to break off within weeks. I'm not happy about it.
That's just why I buy cheap cases off eBay. I don't really care.
Well, Spigen, I think, makes a pretty good case for the money. They're usually pretty cheap.
Yes, yeah, that's what I usually default to when I actually want a decent case.
Yeah,
Likewise.
so
yeah, I have Spigen cases on almost every phone I have in this room.
Yeah. So before we get too off track here, I am going to move us along. We have 6 stories to get through, and then we'll probably do more of kind of a general discussion. But this story from July, also a little earlier in July, you know, remember how like everybody's talking about how the Pixel 2 has all these trade-in problems? Well, apparently Samsung had a pretty bad one with the trade-in discount with the Galaxy S8. We got about well over 400,000 people read our post about the S8 trade-in discount being honored. So Samsung was promising like $200 if you had any one of these lists of Galaxy phones or whatever, and as a trade-in. And so basically, when people went to trade the phone in, they received less than was promised, sometimes significantly. So this was something that upset a lot of people, and I thought it was kind of worth pointing out. Just say like, hey, you know, Google does get a lot of flack for, you know, these kind of retail and customer support post-purchase issues. Samsung had a pretty good one this year too. I think Samsung quite frequently has them.
And it's also worth noting that a lot of the comments on this post were also people saying, I tried to trade in my phone and I didn't get the full value or something similar to that.
Yeah, people were trading. I think somebody emailed us where they traded in a really nice S6 and got like $25 or $30 for it. I was like, something's got to be messed up over there.
I think Samsung, it was like they were like saying some phones didn't boot when people said they were just fine when they sent them in, and it was a huge hassle just to get Samsung to do anything about it.
Yeah, and I mean, this is obviously being done through a third-party company too, and I think we're seeing a little bit of the same thing with the Pixel 2 trade-in thing, where people are basically the Pixel 2 trade-in thing seems to be mostly people who are getting told they sent in a different phone than they sent. This is definitely an issue of values. It kind of makes me wonder, like, if there's, it's almost like these companies receiving the refurb devices have some kind of maybe incentive to not give as much of a rebate as maybe they should.
It's almost always, it's going to be guaranteed that they were subcontracted out. That this isn't Samsung who's looking at these phones. It's a random no-name company like Acer who handles the hardware returns and exchanges for OnePlus in the United States.
Yeah, and if they're not, being diligent with their records and stuff, then this is kind of bound to happen. It's one of those things where, like, if Apple did it, this, So yeah, I think everybody in kind of the Android phone world does a fairly crappy job with customer service sometimes.
Yeah,
we just tend to give Google a harder time because we focus on them. But anyway, this was actually, I think, like the third highest page view story with this year. By the way, I'm leaving out all of our WhatsApp stories because Jesus, it's just there's not. I'm not saying they were all WhatsApp in the top 10, but they're like 3 or 4, and I'm just like, yeah. And this is kind of a running joke that we're like the WhatsApp police secretly. It's just that, like, WhatsApp is so popular in some countries, and I feel like we're one of the outlets providing relatively in-depth coverage of WhatsApp features. And so apparently we've become the go-to source for WhatsApp news, especially Rita's WhatsApp posts.
I was going to say, thank you, Rita.
We all
goes into such detail.
Yeah.
Yeah, she actually uses WhatsApp because that's a thing where she's from. It's not a thing here, really.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
And she knows what's exciting with it and everything. But anyway, a lot of you, click on those WhatsApp stories, which thank you very much. But we are leaving them out of this just because, A, most of us don't really use WhatsApp very much. And B, like, it's WhatsApp. It's just
Telegram for life.
Yeah, there's nothing that exciting about it to begin with. The Samsung one's pretty short, but so this one is worth stopping to talk about. This is the first post that Artem wrote all by himself. In probably like what, 3 years, 2 years?
I think 3 years, yeah.
I will read you the title because the title is exactly why it got as many page views as it did. Google is permanently nerfing all home minis because mine spied on everything I said 24/7. Bracket update X2. This post, A, probably didn't make us any friends at Google. And B, was probably the most clickbaity title published on AndroidPolice.com in the last year.
Good old Artem.
I really love that he said spied as to imply intent.
Yeah.
That was
kind of titles he wants.
I think a few people got upset about that.
Yes, I don't think anybody at Google was very happy to have their product that listens to your voice associated with spying on people.
Because this blew up too. I saw it on regular news media outlets.
We were getting inquiries from CNN and what was that Russian news agency that Artem
RT
shot? Yeah,
Artem was like, no.
Yeah. So basically, if you don't recall the story, when you would tap on the Google, there was like an issue with the sensitivity of the tap mechanism on the top of the Google Home Mini, and sometimes it would just keep listening forever. And then all of that audio would be uploaded to Google's cloud voice recognition service, because that's how Google, does the speech to text, or the basically the transcribing of your voice so the machine can understand it. And so you would have all these recordings of yourself, snippets of you around the Google Home Mini in your Google account. You could go look at all of them and read them and delete them if you wanted, but they'd all be there. This didn't affect everybody. By the way, I did not have this problem with my Home Mini.
It might have affected essentially nobody. We don't really know because Google pushed out an update almost immediately that disabled that button.
Yeah,
and that was before they were even on store shelves.
I would say they pushed out the update probably because they did some internal looking and discovered, oh shit. Yeah.
They probably were able to tell, like, some small number of the devices are going to do this, and there's no way to tell which ones. So
yeah. And then Google came to Artem's house on a Friday night to get his Google Home Mini.
Yeah.
That was hilarious.
Yeah,
and
he ruined a couple engineers' Friday nights for sure.
Yeah, and there's also a touch sensor hardware engineer for consumer hardware position open at Google. Correlation maybe, but still kind of funny.
That is hilarious. So in response to this story, Google, like we said, immediately disabled the top touch functionality. They sent us a pretty detailed statement about it. But then they later issued an update to the Home Mini. And so you got some of the functionality back. So that holding on the left or right side does like the skip track function, right? Yeah,
and the volume.
You can
get the
silence.
volume
You can silence alarms and stuff too.
Yeah, so this was definitely a bit of a wrench in the works for Google. That said, I think most of the time people activate these via voice, not the touch mechanism.
I can probably count on one hand the number of times I've activated Assistant on my Google Home by touch.
Yeah.
I actually use it fairly often, but just as a fluke.
Yeah, I definitely don't use it that much. I have used it, I will say, but I don't usually go for it.
I think
my regular home, I only touch it to silence alarms.
Yeah,
I was about to say, like, if you use your home for alarms, that would get annoying, but I don't, so that's not a problem for me.
Well, I think I just do it because I don't want multiple phones waking up when I say the activation phrase. That's really it.
I have that problem. Yeah, I was just say I just accept it. Like everything activates.
I mean, I use the Hey Google version of the command when I want to talk to Home.
Yeah. But no, phones recognize
that. Both trigger on the phone now, though.
Yeah, the phone recognizes Hey. Also,
does it? Mine doesn't.
Yeah, it just rolled out like a week ago.
Yeah,
it does, but you have to retrain it.
And also, it was one of those things. It was happening on my phone like months and months ago already. Like it was common. It would just wake up to Hey instead of just okay.
I would get some random, but it wasn't consistent. It'd be random. Sometimes my wife would.
I feel like that's because the phone was just misunderstanding what was.
Well,
said.
no. So actually, I can shed some light on this. So these always listening chips. Okay, so they only support one hot word. There's only one hot word that they can understand because the chip only has memory for one dedicated hot word. Qualcomm actually won't release a Snapdragon chip that can do two hot words until next year with the Snapdragon 845. So what Google's done, it has somehow created a model that has enough fudge room between Hey and okay that it hears them as the same thing. It's just one word. So it's just basically processing. They probably got the K and the Hey, those sounds as in, I bet if you say, "Hey, Google," see, it turns mine on. That's what it is. So they've just taken the end of okay and it won't stop listening.
It won't stop.
I wonder
anyway, so that's what that has to be what they've done. They've taken the A sound, and that's what it's listening for. It's not listening for okay or hey. It's just listening for A.
That's why I think mine activate. Because one time mine activated to the cake is a lie. I don't know why, but it came up in conversation, and it's never done it again. But
my Google Home just wakes up sometimes. From random sounds on the TV. It's very weird.
Yeah, so I think that's definitely what they did. I think that was probably something an engineer was like cleverly like, hey, what if we just just the sound, right?
Because I like
stop listening for the first part.
It's one syllable less, and I'm lazy.
Yeah, so I think that's the story with the hot word thing. But as far as I
love how that post is so Artem. Like it's just the day and the time. Like.
Yes, Artem's timeline thing. Oh my God, that post is oh so special for so many wonderful reasons. Artem is creating like a log of his Google Home Mini spying on him. Start date December 6th. I asked Google what the weather was, and then I yelled at my kid to stop touching that. So that was definitely a very big story. One, like we said, probably of all the stories we did this year, the one got picked up most by kind of mainstream news because obviously anything about personal privacy because the
Pixel 2 the Pixel 2 picked up with other tech blogs, but the Home Mini was everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, the spying thing with all of these smart home speakers, that's like Google's worst nightmare, is that, they would accidentally do something like that.
Well, what I've noticed lately is there's very much a hot news trend, and people are very much interested in the idea that advertisements they're seeing are generated based upon things in conversations. Tons of people are talking about this.
I hear people say that all the time, and I'm just like, really?
Yeah.
Like, that
was a big thing with Facebook a few months ago, is that everyone thought the Facebook app was listening to them through their phones.
Oh, they still think that.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, there was like some article on like a radio station's website or something that totally misunderstood how permissions work. They got people on Facebook, of course, all riled up, and they were all just horrified that it was accessing their microphone. It was listening to everything they say. People are just very anxious to believe these things. I don't know why.
Are you saying a misleading post was on Facebook?
Yeah, it's almost like it was a news item that was fake in some way.
Yeah. Troubling.
I mean, people, I hear all the time people are saying like, hey, I was talking about this thing and I started getting ads for it. So obviously Google is listening to everything we do. I'm like, okay, but like, do you think your phone is constantly streaming all of your audio to the internet? Don't you think that is would be an obvious thing people would notice?
Yeah, I think it's also just, so I had a good friend of mine, a very smart person, but not somebody who keeps up on technology news super frequently. And he was telling me, oh, well, I was talking with my girlfriend about fishing. And then I suddenly noticed I was getting ads about fishing on Facebook. And it's like, well, where else would they get it? I was talking on Facebook Messenger with her, and now I'm getting ads about fishing. Like, doesn't that mean they're reading my conversations? And it's like, well, think about it. Did you like access any fishing related websites shortly after or during that conversation? Did you click out to something fishing related? Did you get a link?
Our advertising profiles are already extensive enough. They don't need to listen to us to know.
No, they don't. No, they just know that you clicked on something. Tracking cookies are pretty powerful. They can get a lot of information. Facebook knows where you're exiting to. Facebook probably has a referral link to something a lot of times that lets them know even more than that. So yeah, I think that it's very easy to think that, oh, I was talking about X with somebody and then I got an ad about X. That means somebody's listening to my conversation. Well, the reality is if you're talking about X, you're probably also doing something or did something related to X previously, during, or after that. And that's where the advertisement ended up coming from. And so people, it's very much, everybody seems to be thinking that right now. And, like the thing that my friend was telling me, he's like, well, Apple lied about slowing down iPhones. And so now everything in the tech world is a lie. Everything is a conspiracy.
Everything is a lie.
And
I won't say it, but everything's a lie.
Especially during the holiday season, there was a lot of news articles or opinion pieces that were saying something along the lines of, don't give family members or friends an Echo because it might spy on you, blah, 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 blah. And I mean, I saw stuff like that everywhere, but still the Echo Dot was, I believe, the most bought thing on Amazon this past month or something like that. I mean,
I don't even understand, theoretically, if companies were doing that, I don't even understand what the payoff is, because you can only get caught doing that once, and then you can't sell people smart speakers anymore. Like, that's not going to happen. People are not going to buy them. I think they would just much rather sell people to smart speakers and get more search data like that than to, spy on you and inevitably be caught.
Yeah, and there's another argument that I saw a couple times, and it just kind of frustrated me every time, because people who write these don't know what they're talking about, which is people saying that they're easily hacked. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, my Google Home is probably one of the most secure devices in my entire house, because it has no OS I can access. So I can't like accidentally install something that sends data to a third party like I can on a laptop or a computer or phone or something. And all the encryption is, all the communications are encrypted. It's all over SSL. So, honestly, those things are pretty rock solid. The only way someone's getting in there is if they hack Google servers.
which
Which
is
then we'd have other problems.
Yes,
Yeah.
we'd have many other problems. Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of that kind of mentality. Well, because people have kind of, we've shown that, people who tape up their webcams, that kind of behavior is becoming very ingrained in some people. And I think people say, oh, it's a microphone, it's connected to the internet. And it's like, well, no, it's a little more nuanced than that. But people don't want to talk about the nuance.
And honestly, I think it's still a good thing overall that people are aware of these things. Like, people are kind of aware of their own privacy, but you do also have to think logically and be like, well, does Google really store every second of my conversation on a server somewhere?
Yeah. I mean, it might, it's good that people are aware of their security, but these are also probably people who are on Facebook posting like every detail of their lives. So
yeah. And I think, it's great they're aware. The next step, they have to be aware of the sources of their information. They need to start, maybe reading a little more detail, finding out where this stuff's coming from, and probably asking people that know what they're talking about just to confirm. Because it's so commonly, like, I've heard some of the most ridiculous things. I remember a conversation I had with someone once, way back when Google Plus was still new. Yes, I know this totally dates the conversation. Somebody was determined that Google Plus was highly hackable and very insecure, and they were comparing it to Facebook, which, especially at that time, Facebook had like a string of horrible incidents where people were hacking into it, manipulating accounts, doing all kinds of stuff. And it's like, you gotta balance this and actually do some research and know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, it's the common problem, isn't it? That people know enough to get themselves in trouble, but not enough to actually understand anything. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think what's was illustrative to me about security on the internet versus security in real life is, so the only time I've ever had any kind of serious account breach was I guess this was 9 months ago, maybe like a year ago, and I had gone to take my car to a car wash, and they were cash only, and so there's a little ATM machine outside the car wash. Car wash is on the street, it's open air, there's no gate being closed every night. So I put my card in the ATM and take out $40 and don't think about it and pay for my car wash. And 2 days later, I go check my bank account, and it's like, oh, I'm down about $1,000. And hey, what are all these ATM withdrawals in various parts of Los Angeles? Well, my card got skimmed. And so because this open air ATM basically, had a skimmer put on it. And so they were able to start withdrawing cash from my account. I had to go to the police department, LAPD, and file a police report, wait to get reimbursed from my bank, which it wasn't the worst process, but I was compromised because I was using a fairly analog piece of technology. And that's where I think, criminals tend to go for what's easy. And that's pretty easy comparatively. Hacking your Google account may get you somewhere, but most of the time you're just going to get some of these crappy emails. You're not going to get too much out of that. I guess you have to think, and also hacking an account is pretty hard unless you have a bad password, which I guess a lot of people do.
I mean, unless you're a high profile individual, it's not really a thing you have to worry about.
Exactly. I think, there's so many, in terms of personal privacy and security, one of the things, I've started to think about is, hey, I should actually try to use Android Pay when I pay for stuff, because it is a far more secure method of paying for things than using even a chip and PIN card. Because it's all basically protected by this virtual number on the front end. And it uses the trust zone on your phone, which is a very secure element to pay for stuff. So why wouldn't you do it that way? So I think that people tend to freak out about the internet because it's something they don't understand as much, whereas the things they think they do understand, like credit cards, pose probably the far greater risks to their personal security on a regular basis.
It's funny you mentioned that, because the first several times that I used Android Pay or Samsung Pay, I totally had cashiers telling me that they heard it was really insecure.
Yeah.
And
when I worked at Target, someone who was working there for years tried to tell me that Android Pay was insecure, and that's why they weren't using it at Target. I was like,
Target wants you to use your red card.
I know. Target wants you to use their stupid red cards where you give them access to your bank account.
Yeah, I mean, Target, which by the way, had a gigantic data breach like 2 years ago.
Yeah,
They've had a
And
couple
it
of recent-
still has not implemented any contactless payment.
even though they have the terminals that have it in it. I know because
Yeah,
I was there when
I
they
know.
installed them.
Oh yeah, that always bugs me about going to Target. It's like, seriously, guys, do you just want to push it like, that hard?
Let me add my red card to Android Pay. There we go.
What it is, and the reason they do this, I think, primarily is just to avoid the transaction fee that
That's a
Visa and
cost-saving measure.
MasterCard.
Yeah,
and
that's
so-
why Walmart's doing their really, really stupid design.
The scan one?
yeah, they're using
Target has that
QR
too now. They
codes.
just added that to their app. You have a
Yeah.
little QR code and you show it to the
Yep.
cashier.
Which no, not doing that.
That's awful.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, it's such a bad experience. Yeah.
So,
Whereas I was using Google Wallet at Walgreens like 5 years ago.
So, in order to send us off on our next tangent, let's talk about the next story here, which also has to do with, unsurprisingly, consumer outrage. So these seem to be popular kind of topics for posts.
Go figure.
Netflix earlier this year confirmed that it wasn't allowing devices with unlocked bootloaders or that were rooted to download its app from the Play Store anymore. You now have to sideload it if your device is rooted unlocked. Is that still how it works? Does it still work on unlocked devices?
That's still the way it works, yeah.
I have
Okay.
rooted and let me check.
Anything that doesn't pass safety net triggers that check that's in Google Play now, and it removes, I guess, Netflix and potentially some other applications from even appearing in search.
Well,
Netflix doesn't even appear in search on my rooted phone.
Yeah, well, what happened is that after this went out, it might have been a post like a month later. I think Rita wrote it, where Google was giving developers the option to hide their apps from modified devices. So, like, I'm not entirely sure what the actual umbrella for what a modified device is. I don't know if they're counting all rooted phones or all unlocked phones or like
I think it even counted just a bootloader unlock.
Yeah. So that turned out to be what Netflix was using in this situation, and of course,
device certification.
Yeah. There, if you go to the Play Store on your phone, and you go to the little settings menu. Wait, hold on. I'm trying to pull it up. Okay.
Yeah.
If you go to the menu and then go to settings and then go all the way to the bottom, there's a little thing that says device certification right there, and it'll tell you if the Play Store thinks you have a legit device that is not modified in any way. So that's what Netflix is checking here.
And that even happens on I had this on one of the Xiaomi phones that I have where I had the Chinese ROM, so I had to sideload Google services, and even then it considered it uncertified or an unsafe
if you root
device.
with Magisk, I guess whatever they do to force your phone to pass safety net is also able to circumvent that, so you're good to go.
Google must really hate that guy. Oh man, it's got to be driving them nuts.
Maybe they'll just hire him so he stops developing that.
Yeah,
probably.
That's what Apple did with the guy who made the iPhone OS 2 jailbreak that worked through Safari because of a PDF exploit.
Just please stop doing this. We'll give you other things to do.
We'll give you more money than you would make breaking our stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what happened. Like a couple of years ago, Apple started hiring most of the people from the jailbreak scene. So now there's like no good jailbreaks for iPhones because Apple just took everyone.
Yeah. Good times.
Well, and then those people are finding jailbreaks while they work at Apple, and they are being patched. I mean, it makes perfect sense.
Oh yeah.
Well, and they hired, I think it was like the people from the top 20 or 30 apps in Cydia, like all of them were offered jobs, or all but I think one or two might have not been. But yeah, they went hunting for these people.
Yeah,
because ultimately these jailbreaks are security flaws that should be fixed.
And the people who are exploiting them are the best researchers on the subject.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, they can dive right in and start addressing it. So
everyone wins except people that want to jailbreak their iPhones.
Yes. So our next story, our next two here before we kind of go into free topic discussion are both phone reviews. And it's kind of interesting because they come from opposite ends of the price spectrum. I thought that was kind of a cool juxtaposition. The two most popular phone reviews on Android Police this year were our reviews of the Xiaomi Mi A1 and the Galaxy Note 8. So the Galaxy Note 8 costs almost $1,000, especially if you consider in taxes, if you have sales taxes in your state. Xiaomi Mi A1 costs like what, $200?
Yeah, it's like 200, 250, depends on where you buy it from.
Yeah, exactly. So pretty inexpensive, not crazy cheap, not Moto E cheap, but pretty affordable. And I guess that goes to show kind of the diversity of interests of readers on our website. I mean, we have a lot of people who are interested in budget phones. Similarly, we have a lot of people who are interested, apparently, in still spending $1,000 or so on a smartphone. And we know they do because we look at our device statistics for people who read the website, which I guess I could talk about. That would actually be something to go into. So Corbin reviewed the Mi A1, and Corbin, have you continued using it at all?
No, I had to give it back after I reviewed it, sadly.
Wow, Xiaomi is very stingy.
You can probably thank me for that. Xiaomi does not like us.
At all. So this is an Android 1 phone, so it didn't have a lot of the problems that Xiaomi's phones tend to.
No.
I was going to take a look at this. Wasn't it missing the US LTE frequency?
It's missing US LTE bands. Yeah.
It's not. Yeah, you can't buy it here. It's like for Asian markets.
Which is a bummer because it's a nice phone.
Yeah, I was. I didn't really know what to expect from this because the only Xiaomi phone I had used was a Mi 4C, and that's kind of like just 5X, but entirely plastic. So I didn't really know what to expect from this, but it turned out to be a really nice phone. Like, if the camera was better, I would have had no problem using this as my phone.
Well, and the LTE problems.
Yeah, that was another bummer. The camera was okay. It wasn't amazing. The software is why this phone was so hyped, because it was Xiaomi's first Android 1 phone, which meant that it ran completely clean Android with no changes. And of course, the major downside to buying a Xiaomi phone has always been the heavily modified Android builds. So everyone was super hyped up about this phone, and it delivered. It was a good software experience. I didn't have any of the standard MIUI issues that Jordan has with all the phones he tries, like the Bluetooth and those kinds
notifications.
Notifications. No problems at all. I had some issues with coverage because it did not have the US bands. But I mean, that was really it. It was a really nice phone, and it looked a lot like an iPhone. I know that's always Xiaomi's thing, but
with capacitive keys though.
The capacitive keys were not. I didn't like those. I know some people like those. No.
So on the other end of the spectrum is the Note 8, which I reviewed. I was surprised this review honestly got as many views as it did. I probably shouldn't have been, given that this was, with the Note 7 having been recalled for the boom boom explodey time. This was definitely a hyped phone. It's also the most expensive Galaxy Note ever at $930. I think was the average retail price here in the US, which is quite expensive. And it was just, honestly, part of me as reviewer was like, well, this is an S8 Plus with a pen and a little bit bigger. That's what it is. And that doesn't mean it's not nice. It's still nice. It's very nice. I think it looks significantly nicer than the S8 Plus does because of the more squared off design. It definitely looks cleaner, a little more premium. But the quality is just as good. The screen is a little bit better, as I understand it. The dual cameras, to me, I was very unimpressed with the telephoto lens on it. And the regular camera is just the same one you got on the S8 and S8 Plus. And so for me, as a reviewer, for consumer advice, I thought I can recommend it, sure, if you want to spend $1,000 on a phone. But if you're actually concerned with getting the most for your money, just go buy an S8 Plus, unless you really, really need the pen, because you're getting everything you get here, and better battery life, by the way, on the S8 Plus, because it has a bigger battery and a smaller screen than the Note 8. That said, people are obviously still just extremely interested in the Note brand. And I think the Note brand is one of those kind of, obviously the regular Galaxy S phones get a lot of attention. But I think the Note brand has built up this kind of cultish fan base where they buy the Note phone. That's what they do. They love the Note. They buy the Note.
Yeah, my parents are part of that.
Yeah, and people just love the Note phones. And I guess I can understand that. It's a brand they've come to trust. And I think the Galaxy Note 8, yeah, sure, it's the best Note yet, even counting the Note 7. At the same time, it just felt like to me kind of the perfect illustration of the convergence of Samsung's smartphone portfolio, where, you know, what are you paying extra for here? Not really much. You're not even paying for a phone that looks hugely better than the other ones. It doesn't feel a lot more premium. It's just a little bit bigger, and it has a pen and a second camera. And I just didn't feel like that was worth it when you can get an S8 Plus for so much less money.
I'd heard that the software on the Note 8 was much improved over the S8 Plus, though. Is that not true?
No, it's not. It's the same, basically.
So did you not feel like the Note 8 was faster than the Galaxy S8?
I didn't feel it was a lot faster.
I mean, I felt like it was a pretty noticeable difference.
Really?
That's what I've heard.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't really notice that. I would say that it was not as slow as I expected, but I didn't continue to use it for a long period of time after, and I don't know if it's slowed down over time.
I feel like Samsung tuned that phone to be a little faster, sort of recognizing that it's like their quote unquote power user phone. People sort of expect it to be quicker than the S8 maybe. And I mean, the S8 does like weird stuff, like multitasking. Like if you use the quick switch shortcut on that phone, it always lags. I don't know what the deal is, but that doesn't happen to me on the Note 8.
Interesting. Well, maybe it's different teams working on the software or something. I mean, yeah, that's if that's the case. Well, yeah, that's a bummer. So I think in you know retrospect though, the Note 8 as Samsung releases go was pretty unremarkable to me. It's a good phone, sure. One of the very best you can buy, but like it didn't change anything in a significant way. It was pretty pretty standard.
It was the iPhone 8 of the Android world. It's a good phone. It's just not really that different.
And it wasn't even like a Note power user with with all the RAM, right? It had like what, 4 gigs?
I thought they added more for the Note.
6, I think. I think it's 6.
Oh, okay.
We don't know because David doesn't put the specs in.
Yeah, David do specs.
We don't want to talk about that. So, as I said before, you know, one of the other things I guess we could talk about that would be kind of interesting. We could talk about, and people love this. I'm going to do this post. I will do the post again. The most popular mobile devices used to read Android Police, and so every time number one is a no-brainer because Apple combines their user agents. They don't break out user agents by phone model. So the most popular device on AndroidPolice.com is the iPhone, which makes up 7.37% of all mobile sessions on our website this year. It's the same every year.
I mean, that would be like if Samsung said all Galaxy S phones are the same thing.
Yeah.
Doesn't that also include iPads?
No, the iPad's on separate client.
Okay, I wasn't sure on that.
Yeah, Apple has 2 user agents, the iPad and the iPhone. So
they had one for the iPad Touch too, but I mean, no one uses that.
Yeah, it's true. So getting down to Android phones, though, perhaps unsurprisingly, the Nexus 6P is still the most popular device on Android Police.
Really?
Yep.
I thought they were all broken by now.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't even turn on.
I would not be surprised if the histogram for that is a general downward trend as they start to die, but still the most popular at 5.36% and most popular by a wide margin, by the way. The next most popular is, you probably would equally be unsurprised to learn, is the Pixel XL. So the trick is here, if you combine the first generation Pixel and Pixel XL into one, they do beat out the Nexus 6P. But if you combine the Nexus 5X and 6P, they beat out the Pixels. So the Pixel and Pixel XL are very popular on the site, and you have to probably take into account the fact that they're significantly more expensive than the 5X and 6P were. So Google's new phones clearly still did pretty well among enthusiasts, I would say, of Android, despite a lot of balking at the prices and the purported major issues that the phones had, which were really overblown. I would say, as we go down the list here, the OnePlus 3 is behind the iPad technically, but the OnePlus 3 is the number 7 device, I guess you would say, counting the Apple stuff, at 2.13%. And then from there, we get problematic. So, there's actually a broken user agent for the Pixels. I forgot. So actually, the Pixels do outnumber the 5X and 6P. So what happened is, I'm looking at Google Analytics here. I haven't assembled these numbers and compiled them. the Google Pixel XL has a user agent also called Google Pixel XL, and the Pixel has a Google Pixel, where somebody at Google typoed something basically in the user agent string, and so they've got reported wrong. But if you combine those, actually the Pixels do outdo the 5X and 6P on traffic for us this year, actually.
That makes sense because they're all breaking.
Yes. Next, this is where it gets tricky. And if I had the time to compile everything, I would, and I will for our post. Getting into the Samsung stuff, Samsung has more model numbers than like any phone company has a right to. And they put a different user agent string for every different variant of their phones.
Oh,
it makes no sense.
Nope.
Like I mean, yeah, I know it's a real burden on us people who have to look at web analytics. Our lives are so hard. But like it is a bit annoying. I would say so. Like if I do a search for the S8, actually they cleaned up this year. It looks like
cleaned up. There's still 4 per, right? You still have the international, the dual SIM, the Exynos, and the Snapdragon.
Yeah, and then the dual SIMs. So so like the 950W, the 950U, the 950F. So I guess there would be 6, yeah. And then on the S7, the S7's got a ton. So this is when still Samsung was doing the different carrier model designations for the US, and that just makes it a nightmare. So completely useless to try to compile those in my head right now. As far as the Pixel 2 and Pixel 2 XL, which I assume people are interested in, those are growing healthily. I would say they're probably substantially higher than the Pixels were last year at this time. The Pixel 2 XL, which is twice as popular as the Pixel 2 on Android Police, is at 1.36%, which for a recently released phone is pretty damn good. The other ones, if anybody has like any requests here, I'm looking at OnePlus because I'm curious about that. The OnePlus 5 actually ranks a little ahead of the Pixel 2. So the OnePlus 5 did okay, but I think clearly the OnePlus 3 was their most popular device yet.
Yeah, I see a lot of OP3s.
Yeah,
they were a great phone.
And fun fact: the OnePlus One, the original A0001, is still ranks number 30 on our traffic rankings. Yeah, I have a feeling a lot of people have made that phone last a long time.
It was. Right, I liked that phone. I wish I still had mine.
Yeah. So, and beyond that, it just gets too convoluted. Trust me, it's all Samsung stuff aside from the Moto G4. The Moto G4 it does pretty well at 1.46%. And there's some Xiaomi stuff in there. Some Nexus 5s. People still have Nexus 5s.
No. Oh my god. That's got to be like a 2-hour battery life by now.
Do they just have to live next to outlets?
They must. So the Nexus 5 actually ranks above the Pixel 2 substantially. The Nexus 5 accounts for 0.96 of mobile sessions on Android Police this year. And I'm trying to see if there are any other oddities here that would be fun to point out. I'm not really saying anything else that's all that exciting. Nothing that's like crazy old. Yeah, people still have Galaxy S6s. People still have Note 5s. That's not terribly surprising. What's he doing badly? The HTC U11 does not appear in our top 100. So that should tell you enough about that. I think HTC is kind of done. Oh, the Essential phone. So the Essential phone, actually, this is not surprising to me because Essentials fans are ardent readers about anything related to the Essential phone, is down at position number 92.
Well, at least it's on the list.
6 away from the next bit Robin.
I mean, wait, is the Robin ahead or behind?
The Robin's a little bit behind. They're very similar numbers, though.
Is the Razer phone any place on the list?
Let me just go ahead and no. Yeah, and actually the Pixel C down at position number 97, still clinging on.
Well, Liam got his
going up any higher.
Yeah, so that's fun. That kind of gives you a breakdown of what people are using on the website. As you probably know, we are definitely kind of home to the Pixel and general Google crowd, so makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of people browse with iPhones from work or people who are just kind of curious. But yeah, when you're combining every iPhone SKU, it's like it's obviously going to take the lead. But I guess that just goes to show how many iPhones are out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if you combined every Galaxy S phone, it would probably easily outdo the iPhone, probably by double. I would bet.
Yeah.
So that's something to consider. Anyway, I've been rambling. So does anybody else have anything they want to talk about 2017? Friends,
We saw the
thoughts?
demise of the Pixel C. Sort of.
Yeah, just today, Google pulled that from the Google store. They were still selling the 64 gigabyte version for $600.
Jesus.
They sold the last one, I guess.
So does that mean Google is not selling any first-party tablets at all through the Google
It
Store?
is not. If you go to that page, it redirects you to a page that says laptops and tablets at the top, but the only thing on it is the Pixel Book. So that's there are no official Google tablets right now.
Well, same for Android TV. These things are just inactive.
And I don't think there's no Android Wear section on the Google Store right now, right?
I think that's true, but Google never did a first-party watch, so it's kind of arguably fair.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the Pixel C is gone, and I would not be surprised if that is the last first-party Android tablet that we see.
Ever.
I think they will.
I think the Huawei Nexus 7's gone. We're not going to see it.
I think that was gone a long time ago.
I know, but I wanted it.
I think that probably didn't get off the drawing board.
It's up in Google Heaven along with the Nexus Q2.
Yeah, hopefully Google will now like move full speed ahead towards some sort of Chrome OS tablet that has like full Android app integration. I would like that.
That would be my guess. Yeah.
And that's been in the rumor mill for a long time, especially because if you use Chrome OS in just the past couple months, using it purely on a touchscreen has become so much easier.
Yeah, there are a lot of niceties now. Like, I mean, you have to use gestures on the trackpad so much to get around. It's like, it's actually probably easier to just like touch the screen. But the thing that bugs me is that like the Pixel Book and a lot of other Chrome OS devices, they're at best they're like a 2-in-1, like a convertible. But I want a Chrome device that just detaches entirely from its keyboard and works like a tablet.
See, I would think the good idea for Google would be to go to keep the bi-yearly cycle for the Pixel Book, and then between that do your Surface Pro kind of thing, and so have them on. Yeah,
I mean that's basically what they should have. They need to have a Chrome OS Surface Pro.
Yeah, and there's been a couple things that I think they've been holding off on this because there's just a few things left in Chrome OS that doesn't play well if you only use a touchscreen. Like you still, when you flip Chrome OS convertible into just tablet mode, it makes whatever window you have maximize, and you can't like minimize it or like put things on the side. They finally added the ability to put two apps together on the side and with a little divider, just like Android has. I think that's still in Canary or beta or something like that, but that I think is probably the last thing they need to sort out before they can let people use just touchscreens on Chrome OS.
I think the keyboard experience is still a little janky sometimes. I've used the Pixel Book that way sometimes, and it's just like, okay, like it can have like weird lag load or loading lag, and sometimes I feel like it's not as responsive as it should be. But overall, yeah, I feel like Chrome OS is very close to being a fully polished tablet operating system. It's right there. Yeah. I think they just need the little bit more time, and I think it's a time isn't. They could have hardware ready next year.
They need a competent image editor.
They do. Yeah. Lightroom CC. Yeah. So I was playing more with Lightroom CC today because I love to hate it. I would say that it's more capable than I would have expected getting in there. It doesn't do the things that I want an image editor to do all the time, and also the
watermarking. Come on, Adobe.
So simple. But the other thing is, I feel like the interface being optimized for touch it doesn't feel right on Chrome OS. Something about it just like, I know if I were to use it on my iPad, it would feel infinitely more responsive. And so I'm just like, it's not the very best experience it could be. I definitely get a sense that there's some optimization that still needs to be done on some level. And the use of space on a screen as big as the Pixel Books is questionable. I would like the UI to be larger and my photo to be smaller. The scaling is all kinds of messed up. So we're getting there. I'm actually going to take the Pixel Book to CES and use that as my primary laptop. So I'll probably download some kind of app to somehow watermark my photos, I guess, like that, or
I'll bring a Windows laptop.
Yeah,
I was gonna say I'll have at least one Windows laptop.
Yeah, so it'll get done somehow. But I bought a USB-C to SD card reader thing because the Pixelbook doesn't have a USB or SD card reader for reasons. So I will
Google's hatred of SD cards.
Google's hatred of ports. I mean, the Pixelbook doesn't. Pixelbook has 2 USB-C ports and a headphone jack. That's
so it's the MacBook Air that everyone freaked out about a couple years ago.
Yep. Remember to bring your dongles.
So many dongles. I mean, I guess on a Pixelbook, you're less likely to use dongles because it's not really the kind of thing you would use for dongle activities typically.
At least it's got a headphone jack.
They should put that in the ads. It's not the kind of thing you'd use for dongle activities.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm curious to see how it does. You know, one thing I love about the Pixelbook is the battery life is great as long as it doesn't like get a runaway process bugging out on it and then devour it. But overall, Chrome is pretty predictable.
I wonder if we'll see Chromebooks with the Snapdragon 835 or 845.
Well, we saw that we had that rumor post. It sounds like.
Yeah, so I wonder with the Windows stuff. I wonder if we'll get Chromebooks too.
Yeah, I'm hoping so because the problem with like the Intel Chromebooks is the GPUs in them are just bleh, they're really bad. Intel's low-end GPUs for laptops especially are just like the pits. They're so slow. And like the heat generation on them is pretty terrible. And, you know, having seen what I did with Qualcomm's Windows laptops that we talked about on a show last time we were on, I would be very excited to see Snapdragon powered Chromebooks because I think they would perform very well. I think the battery life would be even better. And I think that you would probably see overall a more responsive operating system than what you get in current Chromebooks. Especially when it comes to things like video playback. I have to reboot the Pixelbook if I'm going to watch YouTube, like every time, because it stutters like crazy. It drops frames, even in 1080p. But if I reboot it, it's fine. You know,
that's weird. I did not have that on that Acer Chromebook I reviewed a couple months ago.
I think it's just bad video drivers, like just
must be.
Yeah, crappy Intel video drivers. Whereas it's something Qualcomm, you know, your phone can play back 4K video just fine. You know, so
and Qualcomm's flagship SoCs can easily beat the rebadged Atoms that they're throwing in low-end Chromebooks these days.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a no contest when they come out with the Snapdragon Chromebooks. I think they're also going to be the most expensive Chromebooks yet, but I feel like you'll get what you pay for at least. Yeah. Especially if they have LTE, that'll be kind of neat.
So two things this year that I thought are worth mentioning. The first is we got all of our Nokia phones this year. So HMD Global, which is the manufacturer that now has the Nokia license and has some former Nokia people working for it, released like 5 smartphones, and they're all pretty good, and they're all durable, and they're all running stock Android, and they're getting somewhat quick updates. Oreo has only got to the Nokia 8 so far, but it's like in beta for 6, and then they're going to keep going down the chain. So that's been interesting.
Yeah, we saw those they were announced at MWC, I think. So
yeah,
I want to like what they're doing, but the cameras look lackluster. And if I'm going to get a phone with a lackluster camera, I'm just going to buy a OnePlus 5T.
Yeah.
Why go with anything else?
Yeah.
I don't see the appeal with Nokia's phones. I mean, they seem fine, but this mostly seems a brand play.
Yeah, it was more of a brand recognition, brand loyalty sort of thing.
I'm curious to see what they keep doing and if they can improve meaningfully, but I feel like the whole formula, well, it's stock Android and it's at an attractive price point. That's great for certain buyers, but
OnePlus has already kind of gotten in on that.
Yeah, OnePlus has that pretty well cornered in the price range they sit at, and I think OnePlus, makes compelling changes to the software and optimizes it exceptionally well.
Yeah. And since the beginning, OnePlus has had unlocked bootloaders, a lot of developer support. I don't think Nokia's done that for the recent ones yet, have they?
I think you can request a bootloader unlock from Nokia, right?
But it's not as easy on OnePlus, even if so.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think.
The other interesting thing is that they're kind of suffering from the same thing Motorola is doing, where they just like keep releasing SKUs. like there's almost no difference between the Nokia 2 and 3, and then they have like a flagship right now, but they're still working on a Nokia 9 that still is going to have like a 16:9 screen, and it's like, really, guys?
Yeah. I feel the same way about it as I do at TCL with the BlackBerry name. It's just like, man, okay. At least the BlackBerry phones look like Blackberries.
Yeah. And the other interesting thing I thought of, I was going down all the posts I wrote this year, is that the Google Fuchsia, I don't know how we're pronouncing that. Yeah,
Fuchsia.
Yeah, that's sort of
Fuchsia.
Yeah, that's sort of taken more shape this year. You know, we still don't really know what it's for because Google's being very tight-lipped about that, but it is coming along very well. There's an interface now that I think is partially functional. We wrote about it back in May. When was it? Someone from Ars Technica. It was probably
it was Ron.
Yeah, it was Ron.
Yeah, I actually played with it at I/O. He brought the phone that he installed it on. Like, it's a thing. It ran. It could display like pixels on the screen that appeared to do things, but that's like, it wasn't useful for anything.
Yeah, so it's obviously still very early stage, but it is coming along. It's a thing that Google's doing, and I think a month or two ago, Google announced that Apple's Swift language would be fully supported for it, and they're working with Apple to make that happen, which seems very interesting. And it'd be interesting to see a phone or a tablet ship with that. I don't know if that's going to happen, but
I don't think it's going to. I think probably best case we see a Fuchsia developer build come out for some kind of Pixel device, and maybe it does some very basic stuff. But based on Ron's demo, like it's still like it's an operating system, and that's a demo. Like there's a user interface demo that shows that it is like there's an interface. That's what it shows.
Yeah.
It's still too early for practical use.
Yeah, it's way too early. I think that, trying to talk about does Google plan to replace Android with Fuchsia is like Google probably has no idea if it plans to replace Android with Fuchsia. It's probably more like, well, this is a project, it sounds like one of those things that somebody inside Google starts and makes a compelling case for it. Like, why do we want to do this, in our spare time, and eventually becomes a full-time thing. And so maybe it's something that eventually finds a home on a product. Maybe it doesn't. I think there's every possibility that they'll develop it for a while and then decide, well, we don't need this anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think Google is very aware that like Android is in a great place right now, but it might not always be, and it doesn't want to be in the situation that Microsoft is in now, where Windows has sort of been doing the same thing for so long and based on the same code that now Android is the biggest computing platform in the world. I'm sure Microsoft would prefer that they had a code base that worked on mobile, but they obviously don't. And Google wants to keep trying new things to make sure it's ready for whatever happens next.
Part of that isn't it based on a microkernel system? So it's like a huge departure from the way that things currently work for Android, as well as I guess really most operating systems. So it could just be them hedging their bets on developments of future hardware that might better support the microkernel type model.
Yeah, it's just structurally a lot different from Android. And also, Ron pointed this out. I can't remember exactly what he said, but it's under some kind of license that doesn't require manufacturers to release their modifications, because it doesn't use any parts of Linux. It's not under like the GPL. I forget what it's under, but that's another major change from Android, which would be problematic if, theoretically they ever released a phone. It would probably be more difficult to modify.
Yeah. I'm sure that, this is something that, Google wouldn't have started the project and released it if it didn't have at least some vague sense of maybe some kind of goal. But at the same time, Android's so cemented in. I guess the way we could see it working is that you basically have Android apps can run. I'm sure Android apps can run on Fuchsia. So it would make sense that, you would have something like that kind of situation where basically, yeah, they're not native to the operating system, but they can still run there. That said, the question is, why do that? Why upend, all of this work that is still going in Android? It's not like Google is like, been like, we're not working too hard on Android these days. We're pretty much done with it. It's like, no, they're still clearly working on a lot of stuff with Android and probably will for years to come.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's showing with the pixels and stuff. So I don't think anybody's going to see a Pixel 3 running on Fuchsia, much as I don't think anybody's going to see a Pixel 3 running on a custom Google chipset. I think these things are years away if they are going to happen, which I don't think we can say yes or no at this point.
Yeah, and it would be interesting if they did add full Android support to this, because all the past operating systems that try to replace Android by running Android apps did not work out well. Like BlackBerry, BlackBerry, the Fire Phone ran Android,
and Sailfish I think tried to as well.
Yeah, they did that. There was some other OS I'm trying to think of.
Didn't Microsoft have that thing for quickly porting Android apps to the Windows?
Yeah.
They did.
I don't think that ever made it out of like the early dev testing stuff, though.
Yeah, I don't think that happened, but yeah, that would be interesting, especially since Android's kind of in the place Windows is in now, where the app library is just too big to think of switching to another platform unless it's iOS.
Yeah.
Right.
Every smartphone OS that starts has an instant huge disadvantage because you can't get Twitter or your favorite email apps or whatever other stuff you use. You just can't.
Right.
Yeah, the infamous app gap.
Yes. So it will be interesting to see if, again, this is all very theoretical. We don't know what this OS is for. It might just be to replace the embedded operating system on the Chromecast or the Google Home. But it would be interesting, and it would lend more credibility to it if it could, because Google supporting Swift and Dart and all these other multitude of languages that aren't Java on this, to potentially make it easier to port apps over.
Well, it also has like real-time OS functionality, right? So
yeah.
So it would be very well suited to embedded applications too. I guess they're trying to build something that's very flexible. I could see it making its way into something like that before it would necessarily make its way into something like a phone, which is much more, that's less about probably the architecture of the operating system and more about the end user experience and making sure everything works. I feel like, actually, something like this could probably be a better bet if Google demoed Android in the car, not at this Google I/O, but the year before, and we never really heard much more about that. I feel like, having a real-time OS, as I understand it, is extremely important to car stuff, because operating with CAN bus requires a lot of real-time functionality to feed gauges and such that need to display things in real time. So yeah, maybe it could be suited for something like that, but I don't know.
Yeah, maybe we'll see a Chromecast in a year or two that runs this, or a new Google Home Mini.
Yeah, maybe. So, does anybody else have any other year-end topics to add?
I'll throw one that we kind of briefly danced into in our chat room. Instead of stuff that happened in 2017, what do you want to see in 2018? Like, what would be your wish list items?
Google needs to get its messaging nonsense together, because Allo is garbage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, but by introducing a new messaging service.
I mean, they need to make Allo not terrible. I don't know. Like, I mean, Hangouts still exists, and I still use Hangouts more than Allo because Allo is just bad. But I mean, they've stopped paying attention to Hangouts, which is also not a good thing. They need to like decide what their messaging platform is and like make it work appropriately.
For what it's worth, Allo really isn't bad. It just has like 3 or 4 really breaking issues, one of which is none of your friends use it. Yeah. And there's no way to fix that one at all anyway. Like that ship has sailed. And it largely sailed because all of your friends were already talked into using Hangouts. Then they left Hangouts, and you're not going to talk them into leaving whatever they're already on now to come back and try this next thing that Google's not succeeding with.
And Google hyped this up in the summer, and then when they finally released it and everyone covered it, they're like, oh wait, this is missing everything.
Yeah. I was like, why would I switch from Telegram to this?
They need to have a version of iMessage. I mean, there's a reason people like iMessage. It works well.
Yeah.
Okay, I would argue so many people hated iMessage because it didn't work well. It has come around like over time. A lot of the issues did kind of get solved, but it had tons and tons of problems for about 2 years. Everyone overlooked all of that because it was just more convenient.
Well, I mean, yeah, it was built into the messaging app on the phone. And I mean, and that's not, I mean, that's just not the way Android works. Most people are never even going to open the Allo app.
Exactly.
Don't even open Hangouts.
Yeah, they're
and
just
the cross-platform convenience, having it on your desktop and your laptop as well as your phone, and all of the same messages going everywhere.
Yeah, so that's the thing that really bugged me, is that Google finally released an Allo web app like 8 months later, but
it's not very good.
Yeah, it's not very good, and you don't get notifications when it's closed.
Yeah.
So you have to leave this tab open. Like, I think WhatsApp makes you do that too, and it feels like such a regression from Hangouts, where I can just
leave it work with Chrome web notifications.
No. It gives you Chrome notifications, but it only gives you them when you have the tab open.
That's remarkably stupid.
Like Google. It's like Google's trying to like imitate WhatsApp, but like the thing is, in the places where WhatsApp makes sense, everybody just uses WhatsApp, and in the places where it doesn't, they don't want to use WhatsApp.
Yeah, we're all stuck using SMS.
I mean, as somebody who went through the iMessage kind of fiasco for like the last month, I will say that, using it, I definitely noticed some of the benefits, like, media transmits like in native resolution. And if you're talking with somebody else on an iPhone, it even transmits live photos, which is great. And, you get like link previews and stuff, which are hit or miss for me because sometimes they take way too long to load. And, messages wouldn't get truncated or split up, which always happens when somebody sends you a long text from an iPhone and you're on Android. Like, the message gets truncated and oftentimes put out of order for no apparent reason. Even though I'm sure Apple could trivially fix that if they wanted. And like, those were nice. It was nice to have those. Like, you get, delivery reports and everything. And so that was okay. And like typing notifications and stuff, sure, that's all fine. All stuff that, like, if you're using Google Hangouts anytime in the last like 10 years, or Google Talk as it was then, you're familiar with all of this. It's basic stuff, and so for me, it was like, oh, this is just like using any other basic web-based chat application, except that it's the sync across devices for me, across my iPad, basically didn't work with one of my conversations. It was too long and just stopped syncing. It just gave up. It's like, nah, I can't do it. And so that conversation never synced right. And then when I went to do the dreaded unassociation, so you have to deassociate your phone number with iMessage when you switch back to Android. Otherwise, you'll have all kinds of weird issues with your SMSs and where they go. Anyway, so I did that. And, one of the people I text, this person's laptop wouldn't let them send messages to me. And so it still was trying to send them through iMessage. And so the laptop had to get rebooted. I had to make sure I signed out of everything on iMessage, blah, 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 blah. Also, if you stop using iMessage, if you're in an iMessage group chat, like, you basically just get kicked out of the group chat. You won't get messages from that group chat anymore. It's just like all these little, experience breaking things, especially when you stop using it. I would say that those things alone, it very much turned me off the idea of ever using it again. I would be happy to deal with plain old SMS if it just means I don't have to worry about, all those other little associated problems. And honestly, the benefits of iMessage to me were just like marginal. Yeah, responding from, my laptop would be nice if I had a Mac OS laptop. I don't. So that wasn't really a benefit.
And that's another thing I think Google could really make Android so much nicer for the average person, is if they bought Push Bullet or made a push bullet like thing where you could respond to text from your Android phone on whatever. I know they're working on that for Chrome OS, but that would also be nice.
I will be happy when that comes to Chrome OS, and I will switch back to Android messages when they do that.
Even then, it's just SMS, though, isn't it?
Hopefully, it'll be RCS when RCS becomes a thing. But
but
oh yeah,
you won't be able
that
to
didn't happen this year.
Oh yeah, RCS did not really. I mean, it's out there. So if you have the right phone and are on the supported networks, I'm pretty sure it's live on T-Mobile and Sprint.
There's still a lot of weirdness with like cross-carrier stuff, though.
Yeah,
they all have their own customized implementations, right?
Yeah, well,
slightly. Well, no, they say they all apply. They all subscribe to the standard now, so they're all in the interoperability agreement.
And as far as I know, T-Mobile never implemented the thing that like the cross carrier standard. So Sprint is still the only US carrier that's done that. Project Fi still hasn't done that for some reason. I don't know why.
Oh, I'm sure the fact that they're on 2 carriers has a lot to do with that.
3 carriers.
Three.
Yeah.
So yeah, RCS didn't pan out. Surprise, getting carriers to agree to do something is hard. Like that's like so like whatever to me. They're all signed on to the agreement. I'm guessing RCS will be a thing. I'm guessing that if you're messaging another person with an Android phone that has RCS, you'll do RCS messaging. But in the meantime, everybody's moving to Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp or Telegram. Even in the US, those services are starting to gain some traction.
I'm converting people to Telegram, and it's working.
I mean, I like Telegram in theory, but I mean, the experience to me isn't really much better than Hangouts.
Yeah, and I need, like I use Pulse SMS on my Android phones. The web client experience is janky, but it does generally work. And then mostly I just use it for the notifications. I'm not responding from the web client. I just want the notification on my screen or my laptop or whatever, So I like that, and I can't get that with Android messages. So I'm
Pulse
sticking with that.
SMS for life.
Pulse SMS is pretty okay. Yeah, like it's definitely broken in a lot of annoying ways with the web client and stuff. But, the little things that I like about it, it does well. So yeah, 2017, Android messaging still sucks. Surprise. So what else about Android still sucks in 2017?
Let's go to the easy one that we were talking about when this subject came up, Android Wear.
God.
I like Android Wear, I really do. But
I don't know how you can still like it.
It's so bad.
The notifications are utterly useless. It is terrible.
Okay, you hate this because of bundled notifications in Gmail.
Okay, but anybody who gets more than a few emails a day, like this is a bad experience. And if you have like a work account and a personal account on your phone, it's also terrible because you can't tell which account is producing which notifications. So you have to guess from like the context of the message, like what's going on. And I mean, it's just unpleasant and terrible.
For starters, I don't actually hook up my work account to my watch, so that.
But it's not. I mean, it's not. You don't have to like sync the account to the watch. It's just if you have those notifications on your phone.
I get those notifications on my phone. I don't get the work emails on my watch. I never have. I don't know if that's weird.
I don't know how you would not.
Yeah,
it should just be producing all of the notifications from your phone on your watch.
After using,
if you found out a way to do that, please let me know.
Yeah, after using Tizen, I can't go back to Wear 2.0. It's just...
you know what the thing is, like I really do. I like Samsung's watches in a lot of ways, but the app ecosystem is bad. Voice interaction is basically non-existent.
If I could have Tizen with Assistant, I would be thrilled.
Yeah, that would be great. The apps are a lot better on Wear, but notification management is garbage, and I think that the lack of good navigation options is a problem. Not even all watches have the digital crown,
right.
The little spinning crown button. That helps a little bit, but the rotating bezel on Samsung's watches is great.
It's amazing.
You know what I think could truly put a nail in Android Wear's coffin is just for Apple to release an Apple Watch app for Android. And that would be the end of it. Google would just be like, well, we tried, I guess. I don't know.
I want Android Wear to work, like, because I mean I'm a nerd. I like gadgety, impractical things sometimes, which is kind of the definition of a smartwatch. But Android Wear does not help me very much. The notification management for me is like a huge part of wearing a smartwatch, and it's just not very good. And most of the watches have pretty mediocre fitness tracking. A lot of them don't even have heart rate sensors. It's just I have a lot of trouble justifying picking up an Android Wear watch when I'm heading out the door.
Yeah. Yeah, Android Wear. Yeah, I've given up. I haven't worn an Android Wear watch in like a year now.
It's ridiculous though. I reviewed the Fitbit Ionic a couple weeks ago, and I don't really like it. I don't think it's a very good smartwatch, but I am wearing it right now because it has an LCARS watch face now.
Oh yeah, I have that on my my LG watch right now. That's what I'm wearing, is my original LG watch that I got for like $50 3 years after it came out. It's got the LCARS. There it is.
Yeah, the thing is, the Ionic, it's better at fitness tracking than any Android Wear device is. It's like similarly good to Samsung's watches. I think it's kind of ugly, but like it sort of embraces its ugliness.
Yeah, and someone in the chat said, "Isn't Android TV roughly in the same place that Wear is?" I think it's in the opposite position, because Android Wear has not all that great. Well, it has issues with the software, but there's a lot of watches. Whereas Android TV is pretty good software, but with no devices.
Yeah, it's all about the
good device.
It's all about the Shield. I mean,
I was going to say Android Wear does not have the Shield. Does not have a Shield TV behind it.
Piece of hardware keeps Android TV going, and you know what? The Shield is excellent.
It is fantastic.
I have grown to like the Shield more and more the longer I've had it. Because they keep adding useful things. Like they had the always on Plex server is fantastic. The Smart Things integration is super cool. It's just a very good piece of hardware.
Yeah, Smart Things integration is super cool, and I think it makes sense to have kind of an all-in-one device like that. Certainly.
Yeah, and I use GameStream almost every day, so I love the Shield.
Yeah, I think NVIDIA has a good core fan base with that product. I have trouble seeing how it goes a lot beyond where it is now. I think it's definitely an enthusiast kind of thing. And I think, unfortunately, TV manufacturers have generally shown that if people do want to, upgrade their smart TV experience, they're generally going to go with the cheaper box, $99 for an Apple TV.
I think NVIDIA really is, they really, really want people to start subscribing to their games or anything, and I don't think that's going to happen.
I refuse to do GeForce Now. I just don't want to pay for it.
I just can't justify it anymore because Comcast implemented a data cap, and I can't basically be streaming HD video every minute that I'm playing.
I almost hit my terabyte data cap in a month, so I don't even do this GeForce Now.
Yeah. So I think Android TV, the Google's focus has shifted to the set-top box makers and TV manufacturers rather than trying to do anything with like consumer hardware or consumer boxes. So they want to get in TVs and they want to get in cable boxes. And I think, as we've seen, like a lot of the changes in Android Oreo for Android TV, I think a lot of them had to do with like the interface for like DVR and stuff, stuff that faces on the TV, so the set-top box side, not the, not like anything you'd ever see on Shield. So,
and Comcast has that Android TV app for, I think, the Bravia TVs. So, like, if they do that, Android TV will be a little bit more useful for some people, because you can get the Mi Box for what, $60, $70?
Yeah, but I heard that thing is just hot garbage.
Yeah, and it hasn't got. I think it just got Nougat like a month ago.
Oh God, wow. Yeah, exactly the kind of problem you'd expect from a product like that.
From Xiaomi.
Let's also throw in Sony TVs Sony is doing a very bad job on Android TV. My from 2015 is still sitting on a really old version of Android. I think it's on Marshmallow still, or maybe it's Lollipop. I'd have to check. It's ridiculous, and it's slow. It's it's slower than the Nexus Player by a lot. I hate using the built-in Android TV support on the Sony. That's why I have a Shield practically.
Yeah, I think, I hedge back and forth on this. I think Chromecast, if you give it in a physical remote, is all Google needs to do TV, right?
I've been complaining about that for years. Like, I mean, I love the Chromecast in a lot of ways, but some people are just never going to want to control their TV with their phone.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it, frankly.
Oh, I love the fact that it doesn't have a remote.
Oh, I'm personally fine with it because that's just one more thing for me to lose in the couch cushions.
Me too.
If I tell my parents, like, okay, here's how you control your TV now, you just use the phone, they'll be like, but can't I just have a remote? I just want to pause. How do I pause?
I think for people growing up, for people growing up today, that's a fine solution. They'll get used to it. But if you want to break into larger market, which TVs, spans the age spectrum in terms of audience, you got to have a physical remote. I would, even be happy to pay extra for one just to have it, and I mean, the interface can be like dead simple.
I want Roku to do custom remotes where you can choose what the buttons are, what the shortcut buttons are.
Yeah, I was very. I mean, I still am very pro Chromecast. It's a really great product. I think most people would agree it's probably the best single piece of hardware Google has built. But I reviewed their new streaming stick, which is the 1080p one. I think is $40, and it was actually really nice. Their software is great. Basically, every streaming platform supports it, including Amazon, which still has hates Chromecast for who knows what. Well, we do know what reason, but it's still annoying. And the remote it even has like voice control. The shortcuts though are annoying because you cannot change them.
Oh yeah, it's like I wonder if like companies actually pay to be on the remote. That's actually pretty smart.
I'm pretty sure Roku is raking in the cash.
That's damn clever.
It's like back in the day, you could get that like free keyboard that they would send you, but it had like button shortcuts to websites.
Oh God, I remember those. Wow, that's a blast from the past. All right, I actually think we need to wrap up because I have to call a potential new writer for Android Police. I need to do that soon.
All right then.
I think that's a good year in review. I mean, it's an 1.5 hour long episode. I think we covered the bases. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we will catch you next time.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Jordan.
Yep, anytime.
We just close? Like,
yeah, we do the cold close.